Hey friends, welcome back for a new episode of Conversations Life Science Leaders Aren't Having. Today we welcome to the show Jason Matuszewski. Jason is CEO at BioStem Technologies based in South Florida. BioStem is a leading innovator in harnessing the natural properties of prenatal tissue in the development and manufacture of regenerative therapies, primarily in the space of wound care. I hope you'll get, as we dive into this conversation, is who Jason is to me. And the word that comes up is no pretense, as Jason is just authentic and without pretension, and naturally comes to the table with a passion for patients, for his team, and for the space that his professional life has led him to here at BioStem. We dive into some of the challenging conversations that life science leaders in his space of wound care aren't having. We talk about his journey over the last 11 years to now who he has become as CEO. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation with Jason Matuszewski. Jason Matuszewski, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you today.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it having me, Jeff. Looking forward to speaking to you.
Yeah. So would love for you to start us off. And as we ask all of our guests, tell us what you're up to in the world.
Yeah, I think a lot these last few months, years, we've been really building an organization focused on treating patients that have issues with chronic wounds. Our organization focuses on the advancement of placental tissue-based products and treating these types of wounds in all sites of service. It's kind of a accumulation of going into COVID, where areas of folks that weren't able to get into the hospital had an opportunity to be treated at their home, and really kind of exploded our business on focusing on patients that are in need of these products to treat their chronic wounds in their home or in alternate settings than in the hospital setting.
And 10 years, well, a little over 10 years now.
Yeah, just over 10 years.
Love to hear the genesis of BioStem. Maybe it wasn't even called BioStem back in 2014, 2013. Tell us about the last, well, I was about to say, tell us about the last decade. That's a lot. It's a big question, but yeah, up to, who were you then in 2013? And I'd love to hear who you are today and how that's different.
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, BioStem has had a lot of twists and turns in its story. It actually started in genesis of actually my co-founding partners, Andrew Van Versen, his father. His father actually had a rare brain tumor and was treated with experimental radiation therapy in Stockholm, Sweden, at the Karolinska Institute. And leaving there, he was left with paralysis across half of his body, as well as kind of cognitive and motor function inabilities. And so leaving there, he was seeking an opportunity to kind of regain some of those functions. And the early onset of BioStem was actually focusing on regenerative medicine ex-US. So that the company, before we took control and bought the controlling interest of the company, was treating patients in the Dominican Republic with expanded and cultured stem cells, and mostly high net worth and professional athletes, specifically in the Dominican Republic. And so Andrew's father went down there, received the treatment, and actually started regaining a lot of those functions back. And so we got really excited and passionate about it and said, wow, there's a really great opportunity to take control of this company, expand its footprint in the medical tourism business, and really give back to patients, and hopefully, have them have the same experience Andrew's father had. We did that until about 2018. We actually expanded our international footprint to 3 sites, one in the Dominican Republic, one in Guadalajara, Mexico, and one in Mexico City. And then kind of pivoted to what we are doing today, which is focusing on advanced wound care products from placental tissue. ironically, our source material for stem cells, part of it was from umbilical cord tissue, as well as bone marrow. So that's kind of the connection and the link to how we got to where we are today. It's always been with a forefront minded focus on how do we impact patients, obviously coming out of the genesis of Andrew's father's healing experience from that. And so, we pivoted in 2018, obviously rode through the COVID pandemic where our products are used outside of the hospital, areas which ultimately were closed during the pandemic. So it was interesting, and it allowed us actually to do some deep thinking about how do we innovate in this space and how do we become a leader in the space with differentiating ourselves on the processing technology side. And it allowed us to really develop our unique own process called BioRetain, and kind of move forward as hopefully a leader in the space with this new processing technology.
I'll preface this question with a quote. John Ruskin said that the greatest reward for our work is not what we get from it, but who we become by it. I'm wondering if you just reflect on these 10 years, who have you become?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Obviously growing an organization from, 3 co-founders, maybe 1 or 2 employees to now an organization of over 50 employees. The ability to be a leader and demonstrate confidence even in areas of turbulence like COVID is a great example, right? Showing the stability and the strength to lead others in those types of headwinds. I think as I self-reflect on myself, I think those are areas that I have actually shown a lot of growth in. Also, too, being a public company, right? It's not the easiest task to kind of grow as a leader and navigate being in the public domain and what you can and can't disclose and all those other things. So I think just really trying to hone myself on helping not only be an influence for others within our organization, but then also externally trying to be an influence as a leader in this space as a public company CEO. So I hope that answered your question. I think at the end of the day, it's a lot of growth. Obviously, both Andrew and I are also younger executives in this space, and so there's a lot of we've had an opportunity to actually surround ourselves with some really great advisors and mentors throughout our time of being in leadership roles, and really help shape our leadership style and also kind of help shape our strategic mind on how we go about doing things.
You're drawing me in with this, your reflection on mentorship and coaching and support that you've gotten. What would you say is I'm not going to ask you for one question, maybe it's more style that has really served you from those mentors or coaches that have poured into you?
Yeah. One of the big initiatives that we have here is we call it the STEM, right? It's a family culture, it's a community culture. And I think, what has I kind of see the genesis or the results of that culture is that everyone feels, one, that they have a say and have an opportunity to be vocal about a concern or an opportunity to, drive a certain conclusion or thought process. At the same time, it's kind of, it's a flat communication style where, it isn't, it needs to go through the ranks to communicate a strategy or idea. It actually creates a lot of efficiencies within our organization because there is an approachableness associated with that. And I think also too, it also kind of flips to, in a way, accountability, right? Everyone feels, okay, if I have buy-in, I'm helping shape and mold the processes of strategy or decision-making. I have more buy-in and the ability to help feel like they're driving a conclusion to whatever we're working towards, right? So I think, I think from a perspective of leadership style and the feel for how we are as an organization, um, our community style family, it kind of creates a really good culture within our organization.
Hmm. It, as I work with whether it be clients or guests and talk to them about that trajectory, this conversation and the priority around culture, it doesn't automatically come naturally. It's one that you have to sort of realize, and I see it in different ways, the light bulb moment. Oh, this matters. Can you think of this journey over the last 11 years when you've realized, oh, culture matters and being intentional about that matters?
It's interesting saying that. I don't know if it's just being from the Midwest or just the values of what my parents instilled in me along the way as I grew up. I think when you try to put intent to it, it becomes disingenuous, right? And so it's just the way that we operate. I can't say it any different than that. Is in the sense of that's just how it is. It comes off very pure in the sense of what the culture should be or who how we operate in that manner. I think honestly, I feel like if you have to put intent to it, there's got to be something else secondarily wrong, right? And sometimes people kind of see through it, right? So I think, yeah, it's just I think it's a natural attribute of our leadership. Both Andrew and I, have kind of alluded that type of culture and feel to the organization where people feel like that's it is a family, right? So
Yeah.
so yeah.
I want to jump back to the BioStem story. You mentioned in the early days medical tourism and the clientele for that are those high net worth, and now you're in a different, my sense is different space where the type of care you're offering is for regardless of economic status. How are you looking at strategically democratizing wound care and the technology for that in your space?
Yeah, ironically, to your point, we went from a completely higher rung of people going outside of their means and paying for a medical tourism trip that typically lended itself to high net worth individuals, pro athletes, things of that nature, to frankly serving the underserved community and somewhat fulfilling in my mind, right? At the end of the day, I mentioned this to somebody the other day where, we have an amazing opportunity through our gracious donors to take birth tissue from a successful birth of a newborn and process it proprietary to our ways, and then be able to deliver that product to a patient that frankly is struggling with a chronic wound, typically underserved patient population, more than likely a minority patient population that struggles with these types of underlying chronic wounds, and actually get them back on their feet and hopefully save their limb to save their life. And so it's a pretty humbling experience to say the least. And it's been an honor to actually kind of make that transition and be able to support a lot of patients out there, making sure that they do save a limb or save a life. Sadly, I mean, statistically, it's kind of also somewhat humbling. Obviously this new administration is working towards hopefully making the United States healthier. At the end of the day, we have 50 million Medicare beneficiaries today. 20% of those folks have chronic wounds. By 2030, we're going to have 80 million Medicare beneficiaries that also have 20% have wounds. So this problem isn't going away. And I think the sooner we can also lower costs for the overall Medicare trust fund by offering these products to reduce amputations and other burden costs on the healthcare system, the better, right?
And that that leads me to the name of our show, which is Conversations Life Science Leaders Aren't Having. It feels like there's a conversation in there that your peers in the life sciences, maybe in the wound care vertical, are not having or not having enough of.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a great question. I think in our space, especially in the advanced wound care community, other life science leaders in the advanced wound care community, I think really it's interesting. It's been a somewhat of an up and down environment for this space. I think one of the bigger things is getting everybody on the same sheet of music and really putting patients first. What is the appropriate way for our industry to come up with a continuity model around coverage, payment, and data-driven decisions to put patients first.
No problem.
A coverage and data way to put patients first to ultimately drive better outcomes. And I think these are conversations that I would hope that others within our industry can figure out a way to actually collaborate on, and everybody to kind of row the boat in the same direction. I honestly think it has actually plagued this segment of our industry, and frankly has stifled innovation in some ways. And by doing so, only impacts patients. And I think that's what we need to figure out and get everybody on the same sheet of music so that we are, impacting patients the appropriate way. And be able to be a leader in innovation in this space. When we look at outside of the U.S., some of these therapies that are being developed and delivered here aren't outside of the U.S. because of the healthcare system and the coverage and payment and reimbursement for our products. Here in the States, we have an opportunity to actually make an impact to that, and hopefully at the end of the day, with the goal in mind to making the biggest impact to patients.
And how do you lead the way in that conversation? Or what is the ways that, whether it be at conferences or with peer groups, how are you engaging in that conversation? What does that sound like?
Yeah, I think, it's a multitude of things, whether it's peer groups, whether it's conferences, and frankly, even at the levels of leadership within our own government. I think, leadership at the HHS level, CMS level, FDA level, and really helping craft and figure out a way to drive, how to get these products approved and onto patients sooner in a more efficient manner. I think, I'm not just speaking probably for just our subset of the industry. I'm sure there's pharma companies, there's probably pharma CEOs, medtech CEOs, others that are saying, man, why does it take us 10 years to develop a product to get out to patients that it has shown better efficacy X, Y, and Z, right? I think, what that means in my mind, simple mind, is if it takes 10 years versus 5 years, the cost is probably exponentially higher, right? And is it because of bureaucracy, or is it just because we just haven't figured out how to efficiently do that process? And so, hopefully, like I keep saying, I want to be the adult in the room for the wound care space and really drive how to get these efficiencies done, and be able to deliver innovative products to patients. And hopefully we can curb a lot of these other underlying issues like amputations, and other potential risk factors to these subset of patients that would cause them to incur even more costs to the overall Medicare system. So that's one of our goals.
And in light of all of these complexities that often you have it's just a single voice in the room, how at BioStem do you take on the challenge to innovate and speed up delivery in spite of the things that seemingly mind-numbingly get in the way?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've tried to work as best as we can with folks, from not only, from the patient side, from the practitioner side, the physician side, as well as, on the government side, to make sure that one, we're designing our trial design appropriately. That is the most efficient way to get it through as fast as we can. Two, looking at products that are innovative, and how we can bring them here to the United States, to support, innovation in the space, right? I think also too, looking at other opportunities, to enlighten folks along the path on, hey, if we did X, Y, and Z, we could be more efficient on getting not only our products, but the broad array of products by other manufacturers, into the marketplace, right? And create a free market for all of those products, and ultimately, hopefully, impact patients a lot quicker, right? It's just a lot of education, to be honest, getting in front of these folks and trying to drive change in that manner.
What's the secret sauce around STEM, your culture that you named?
Yeah.
What's the secret sauce, or what's unique about STEM that contributes, that makes you, your environment, your people unique and able to drive that?
That's a really interesting question. Authenticity, I think, would probably be one of the top elements of that. I think also too, kind of back to my earlier point about having the opportunity to really share stories of patient impact. One of the cool things that I do on a weekly basis within our org is I have something called on Mondays called the opening bell meeting, which is a 15 to 30-minute meeting with everybody within the organization. I try to play a catchy tune and themes for the week, but really, help people that are maybe in the lab or, frankly, in marketing or sales or accounting, to share some of these patient stories, and how we're actually impacting patients, and so that they actually feel like, okay, the contribution that I'm doing, whether it's, tying the books out at the end of the month or stocking a shelf or processing tissue, what is my job actually doing? How am I actually truly impacting a patient? And trying to deliver that story to them so that they see, okay, what we're doing as a whole, as the STEM actually is, driving to an end result and humanizing that end result, right? Actually sharing some of the amazing stories where patients received therapy and saved a limb, or patients received therapy and or used our products and were able to dance with their daughter at their wedding, right? Because they couldn't stand up on their foot because of a really bad diabetic foot ulcer, right? And so when people realize, okay, I'm just not another cog in the wheel, I'm actually driving change and impacting patients, they can humanize that to, oh, if my parents had an issue or my grandparents have a wound that they can't get in control, how does that impact my life? How does that impact my parents' life? How does that impact my grandparents' life? Things of that nature. So I think that's something that we really try to strive for here.
I'm curious, is there a story inside the organization, take the person in accounting, who, because of the passion that you cultivate for the patient and speed to market and impact, is there a story that you can think of an individual, not necessarily at the bench or in the science, who made different decisions or innovated so that their job happened quicker and contributed to the overall system that is moving BioStem forward?
It's a good question. I think there's been situations where people, the sense of urgency, I guess, maybe in a sense of to innovate in certain things, has driven people. For example, I mean, I think a great example is within our organization. There's a way to push to collect data. For example, late last year and maybe early in 2024, there was a need from CMS and Medicare to share data with to say, okay, are these products, should they be covered or not covered, or should these products retain coverage? And the group really bound together to say, okay, how do we generate data quickly? How do we reach out to providers that are already using our products and accumulate that data to hopefully have a statistical significance of a data set to show how our products impact patients, right? And I think that's an interesting maybe way of answering your question. I also too, there's a story in regards to our recovery partners that we work with. For example, we had a recovery partner who had a employee who was actively recovering tissue at a site, and her son was in a bad car accident and ultimately was burned on his face. And she advocated for those burn surgeons to use a placental-based tissue product on his face out of the necessity of essentially that's their job, right? Her daily job was to recover tissue. And her son actually had a really good recovery and very minimal scarring on his face because of her involvement in the process of recovering these types of tissues. So that was kind of an interesting, cool story of somebody that was in the space that had the foresight to advocate for the use of the product and ultimately improved her own son's scarring issues with that accident.
Yeah, I love those. I love the stories that result in people taking whatever they're able to do and innovate or take a different level of urgency because of the stories that you're able to tell on those opening bell Mondays or in other settings. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very fulfilling when you get up every day knowing that you have an ability to impact a patient's life and hopefully save them from an amputation where, sadly, in this subset of patients, an amputation is somewhat of a death sentence because of their underlying conditions, right? Statistically, it's very high. And if we have the ability to impact that patient in that manner and be able to continue to have them, live for another 15, 20 years, it's a very fulfilling mission and makes us get up every day. That's for sure.
Jason, as you look at the next 3 to 5 years for yourself, for BioStem, what does the vision that you have, what is it calling on from you for these next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think what it calls on for me personally is really driving as much innovation and awareness around advanced wound care. I think sadly in its past, this subsegment had a lot of, like I said, turbulence. And I think now is an opportunity to kind of set the record straight. I think also too, we are a South Florida based biotech company. So here's a great opportunity to really highlight the folks that are here based in our geographical location. There are innovators down here in South Florida. There are folks in the med tech and biotech space. There's opportunity down here. We're not located in Boston. We're not located in the Bay Area, right? So really putting this geography on the map as an opportunity to demonstrate there can be a success story here in the state of Florida in this subsegment, right? We're not just known for exporting orange juice or something like that. And I think, over the next 3 to 5 years, I think our goal is to really expand our product portfolio outside of just what we are doing today. And really hopefully be able to impact the patient on a multitude of levels, whether it be products, technology, or other innovations, and hopefully, really make an impact, whether it's being a leader in the space, and hopefully driving permanent reform around these products, and hopefully the continued advocacy for patients to maintain coverage and payment by both commercial and government payers.
Jason, as we wrap, what would you love to highlight that you haven't already mentioned about BioStem?
Yeah, I think we're, like as I mentioned before, we're a great story coming out of South Florida in the med tech and biotech space. It's an honor to be here, as well as being a leader in this space, and hopefully, like I mentioned earlier, the one of the adults in the room to advocate for patients in the advanced wound care segment. Uh, I hope we continue to have additional dialogue in the future and be on a few more shows with you, Jeff, and happy to tell the story further and further down the road as we evolve. And hopefully everyone enjoys some tidbits from this podcast and learn a little bit more and dive deeper into our journey as a company. And hopefully this is one of the many podcasts that we're on with you and talking about milestones that we have achieved in the future.
Yeah, very exciting. You have an open invite for future appearances.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
If folks want to know more about you or BioStem, where can we send them?
Yeah, sure. Obviously biostemtech.com is our website. Also on LinkedIn, BioStem Technologies, as well as myself on LinkedIn as well. So look forward, happy to communicate with everybody, and look forward to speaking to you in the future on some of the other milestone initiatives that we achieve.
Awesome. We'll put all that in the show notes. Jason, thanks so much. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate having us on the show.